Today we are starting Unit 2B. This unit will take us all the way to Christmas break, okay? And then when we get back from Christmas, we'll start Unit 2C. 2 has been split into 3 different parts because it's so big. Okay, so let's begin. Today should not be a problem for you if you know how to graph a line, which we just learned how to do in Unit 2A. So let's start with number 1. Okay, for number 1, keep in mind that all equations are in y equals mx plus b form. So when I ask you what the slope is, you basically look to where the m is, and you tell me that. Right, so that's your slope. When I ask you what the y-intercept is, you look at the b part of the equation, which is -3. Now you have all the information you need to graph the line, so what do we do first? Right, you always start with your y-intercept, which is -3, and plot your point on the y-axis. Then from there, your slope will tell you what to do. Correct. And then we can't do it again, and we couldn't go down 7 left 2. So 2 points is the most we can get on this graph, so go ahead and connect them. Your slope is positive 7/2. Your y-intercept is negative, which is why I crossed below the x-axis. Okay, now now we're going to graph the second line. Now, last unit we were just graphing equations, right, Lazarus? But now we're graphing 2 equations, which is known as a system of equations. Anytime you have 2 or more equations, it's called a system. Okay, now we're only going to be working with systems of 2 equations, but you could have a system of 3 equations or more. But for our class, we're only going to get up to 2 equations at a time. So what is the slope of this second line? 1/2. And what is the y-intercept? +3. So to graph this, what do I do first? Right, on the y-axis, and then from there go
up 1/2.
And look what happens when I go over 2. They intersect. So go ahead and take your ruler and connect your 2 points, and then we'll talk about what it means where they intersect. You can, but really there's no need once you find your intersection. Yeah, once you find your intersection, there's no need to make more points. Okay, now, where is that intersection of those 2 lines? What are its coordinates?
2, 4.
Right. To get to that intersection, you have to go right 2 on the x-axis and then up 4 on the y. Okay, so now we are going to confirm that we did indeed solve this correctly. So I want you to put your pencil down and just watch for a second. And I will give you time to copy once I've done it. Just watch. Y'all miss a lot when your head's down. I'm going to rewrite both of these equations down here. Y equals 7/2x minus 3. And y equals 1/2x plus 3. Why do you think I didn't write the y into x? I'm going to plug in my solutions, x and y. So if y is 4, I put a 4 in both of those. Just watch, guys. If my x is 2, I put a 2 in both of those. Now I want you to take your calculator and type in 7/2 times 2 minus 3 and see what the calculator says when you type that in. So you're typing in 7/2 times 2 minus 3 and then enter. 7/2 times 2 minus 3 and then press enter. Alpha y equals. Okay, so when you type in 7/2 times 2 minus 3, did everybody get 4? Yes. So that just showed that the point 2, 4 worked in this equation. It made a true statement. Now type in this one, 1/2 times 2 plus 3. Let people type it in. Yep. I've already decorated.
Are you serious? I'm decorating this weekend. What the heck?
So when you typed in 1/2 times 2 plus 3 and hit enter, what did the calculator say? And that's what it says it equals. So that means we did it right. So we have confirmed that 2,4 is indeed the solution to this system because when we plugged it in both equations, it worked. Okay, let's look at number 2. Oh yeah, go ahead and copy. Number 2. I want to say this before I ask this question. Remember, all equations are in the form y equals mx plus b. So when I ask you what's the slope, you look to the m place, which is the number beside the x. When I ask you what the y-intercept is, you look to the b place, which is the constant value, the number without an x. So y equals 1. What is the slope? No. Guys, let me say this again. When I ask you for the slope, you look to the m location, which is the number beside the x. When I ask you for y-intercept, you look at the b, which is the number without an x. There is no slope here. This was originally y equals 0x plus 1, but since the slope was 0, they chose not to write it at all, which then in turn shifted the 1 over. But that 1 is still your y-intercept because that 1 is still a constant value without an x beside it, right? Right, so you go to the y-axis and put a point at 1, but think about it like we always do. If your slope is 0, isn't that the same thing as 0 over 1? So what did that mean? Up 0, right 1, up 0, right 1, up 0, right 1. Or you could go the opposite, down 0, left 1, down 0, left 1, and so on. So what kind of line does that form? Horizontal. Now, think about it like this. Slope and steepness are synonyms. So if you have 0 slope, doesn't it make sense that you have 0 steepness? Okay, now let's graph the other line. What is the other line's slope? 5 over 2, and what is its y-intercept? So we start by doing what? Right, and then from there we go, okay, and when you go over 2, don't you land on a point right there on the other line? Okay, so go ahead and connect your 2 points with a line. Okay, now let's talk about where the intersection occurred. To get to this point of intersection, you have to go over 2 up 1. See how they crossed right there? Because from the y-intercept, you were supposed to go up 5 over 2, making them cross right here. Now, we're going to check it. So this is where I want you to just stop and watch, and then I'll give you time to copy. Y equals 1. Y equals 1. But for my solution, what's the y value? 1. Okay? Does that make a true statement? Yes. Now let's talk about this one. Y equals 5 over 2x minus 4. Well, what do I plug in for y? 1, because that's the y value of my solution. What do we plug in for x? Correct, because that's the x value of my solution. Now I want you to type in 5 over 2 times 2 minus 4 and see if the calculator says it equals 1. Let me quickly show you how you can do this without the calculator. Okay, everybody look to the board a second. I'm going to show you how easy this is to do without the calculator. Aren't all whole numbers over 1? So what's 5 times 2? What's 2 times 1? So what's a 10 over 2? And what's 5 minus 4? 1. So it works. Like look over here. That's over 1, so 7 times 2 is 14. 2 times 1 is 2. 14 over 2 is 7, and 7 minus 3 is 4. Okay? You can always throw the whole number over 1, and then you just multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, simplify, and then deal with that number. Okay, now I'll give you time to copy it before we move to number 3. with the first equation, what is its slope? What is its y-intercept? So to graph it, what do we do first? Right, and then from there to get to our next point, we go, correct, and then we can't do it again, but we could go the other way. Instead of going up 3, right 2, couldn't we have gone down 1, 2, 3, left 2? And then you could even do it again. You can make as many points as necessary on your first line, but then your second line, you can stop once you get to your intersection. Okay, so we have graphed the first line. It's positive because we had a positive 3/2 slope, and it goes through the y-intercept at 1 because that's what the b was. Now it's time to graph the second line, which has a slope of, right, now keep in mind that negative is currently kind of just out to the middle of the fraction. You can place it wherever. You could have placed it with the 1 or the 2. It does not matter. What is the y-intercept? So to graph this line, what do I do first? Right, and then from there I would go down 1, right 2. But look, if I keep going down 1, right 2, that's not really helping me know where it crosses over here. So instead, maybe I should have put the negative on the 2. I just didn't know that at the time. But that doesn't matter. We can quickly adjust and go the opposite. Up 1, left 2. And now look, haven't I found the intersection of those two lines? Okay, so go ahead and draw your line. Okay, the reason it's going down is because your slope was a -1/2. It crosses the y-axis at -3 because the y-intercept was -3. And where did those two lines intersect?
-2.
Okay, so the x value of our solution is -2, and so is the y. So when we rewrite y equals 3/2x plus 1, and y equals -1/2 x minus 3, aren't we going to plug a -2 in all of those blanks? Because the -2 was x and y. Now I want you to take your calculator or do it by hand the way I showed you and check to make sure when you type in each one of those, the calculator says they equal -2. Number 4, what is the slope of this first line? 5/4. And what is the y-intercept of it? So to graph it, what do we do first? And then to get to our next point, we go correct. And then you can't find any more points because you can't do that again, and you can't go down 5, left 4 either. So you're ready to connect those 2 points with a line. And now we are ready to graph our second line. Okay, for the second line, what is the slope? Right, and what is the y-intercept? 2. So what do we do first to graph it? Right, and then from there, and when we do that, don't we find the intersection right away? Okay, so go ahead and connect those points with a straight line. Where is that intersection located? 4, 3. So that's your answer, and now we're going to check it. The x value is 4, the y value is 3. So y equals 5/4x minus 2. And then y equals 1/4x plus 2. What do I need to plug in both of these blanks where the y's were? 3's, because our solution for the y value is a 3. And what do we need to plug in both x places? 4, because that was our x value of our solution. Now you need to take the time to type in each one of those in the calculator and make sure each one of them gives you a 3. On the next page, we're going to jump straight to number 8. For number 8, what is the slope? 3/4. And what is the y-intercept? So to graph it, what do we do first? And then to find our next point, we go, or we could have gone down 3, left 4. Okay? Now you're going to connect those points with a straight line. And now we're ready to graph the next line, which has a slope of 3/4 and a y-intercept of 4. So how do we graph it? correct. And then it tells us from the y-intercept of 4, we should go up 3 over 4, but we run off the graph, so instead we should go down 3, left 4. Now when you connect those 2 points, what do you notice about your 2 lines? They are parallel. Any ideas why they ended up parallel? Same slope. Think about it. Even though they're starting in 2 different places, aren't both of them rising 3, running 4, rising 3, running 4? That's what causes them to be parallel, because they rise and run the same amount forever. So, if a solution is found where the 2 lines intersect, what does it mean when they don't intersect? No solution. It means that there's no ordered pair that could be plugged in both of them and make true statements in both. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next page once you're done with that one. Okay, are we ready? Okay, what's different about this page? Right. They're not in slope-intercept form, but that's not a problem for us because in the last unit, we learned how to take it to the side and rewrite it in slope-intercept form. Like, isn't that your mx sitting over here? And doesn't the mx belong after the equal sign? So how would we get this 4x over here? Right. But since it's positive and we want to move the entire thing, we subtract it. So now, the 4x minus 4x cancels out on the left side, leaving 3y equals. Now, look up at the board a second so you don't get confused. Technically, it's in the order -6 minus 4x. But isn't -6 your b and -4x your mx? So shouldn't we just go ahead and write them in the correct order? Okay, now how do we get it in slope-intercept form? Divide by that 3 so that y will be along. And so the 3 over 3 becomes 1y. No need to write the 1 though. That becomes -4/3 x. And then what does that become? -2. So what is your slope? Right. And what is your y-intercept? So to graph this line, what do we do first? Right. And then from there we go. Right. So instead we go. Right. Because think about it. If you had gone right 3, wouldn't your line have ended up going up from left to right? And that's a positive line, but we have a negative slope, so our line should be going down from left to right. Okay, now go ahead and connect those with a straight line. And now we're ready to graph our other line, which has a slope of 0. And a y-intercept of 2. What does the slope of 0 look like, graph? Horizontal. Don't you just go to your y-intercept of 2 and just draw a horizontal line through it? Okay, so do you see an intersection? Where does it occur? -3, +2. Because to get to that intersection, you have to go left 3, up 2. Now we're going to check it. So I'm going to rewrite both equations down here. 4x plus 3y equals -6. And then y equals 2. But in both y places, I need to plug in a what? A 2. So that was a y place and that was a y place. And in the x places, I need to plug in a -3. Now, the bottom one is pretty easy to check. Is 2 equals 2 a true statement? Yes, so that one worked. Now let's check the top. Type in 4 times -3 plus 3 times 2 and see if the calculator says it equals -6. Okay. No, you check it the same. Oh, you meant like you could have used this to check. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, when you went to check this point, you could have either plugged it in that one or the original one. It doesn't matter. Okay, so when you plugged in 4 times -3 plus 3 times 2, did the calculator say it equals -6? So it worked. That means this is our solution. because when plugged in both equations, it works. Okay, number 12, what should we do first? Well, we need to take the first equation and get it in slope-intercept form. So y'all just said subtract the 2x to the other side because that's the mx. Then you're left with negative y equals what? Right, we'll just go ahead and put it in mx plus b order. And now is y by itself?
No, there's a negative.
Right, that y is being multiplied by negative 1. So to undo that, we divide by negative 1. And now we simplify, so y equals, what does negative 2 over negative 1 become? Positive 2x. And what does 2 over negative 1 become? Negative 2. So now is it in slope-intercept form? Yes. So what's the slope? And what's the y-intercept? So to graph this, what do I do first? Right, I go to my y-axis and plot my y-intercept at negative 2, and then from there to get to the next point, and then I can continue doing that a few times, or I could have gone down and left. Okay, once you have as many points as you can get, go ahead and connect them. And now we're ready to graph our second equation. However, it's also in the wrong form. So how do I get it in slope-intercept form? Right, that's like a 1x. That's your mx, so I need to subtract it to this side, and then I'll end up with y equals what? Right, and so that one's done. That one was easy to get into slope-intercept form. So for that one, what's the slope? Negative 1 over 1, and what's the y-intercept? Okay, so to graph it, what do I do first? Correct. And then what do I do? And then if I do that one more time, don't I hit the other line? Okay, so go ahead and connect your points with a straight line. And then once you have them connected, you can identify the solution. Where is that solution? 2, 2. So your x value is 2, your y value is 2. And now I'm going to rewrite each of these, but instead of using the originals, I'm going to rewrite them once we changed them. So y equals 2x minus 2, and y equals negative 1x plus 4. It's okay if you check them with these. It's okay. I'm just showing you that you can check them with the rewritten versions also. So what do I plug in both y's? And what do I plug in both x's? And now look, what's 2 times 2? And 4 minus 2 is 2. So that one worked. What's negative 1 times 2? Negative 2 plus 4? 2. So see how they both work? Can y'all open that window back up? It's about 80 degrees. I know, but it's too hot. The wind is bringing it down. The wildfires are bringing the smoke down in North Georgia. Okay, now let's look down at number 16. This is the last one I'm doing with you. Okay. See how, like on this one, the y is on the wrong side to begin with? Y should always be on the left. What property says that we can just, very good. The symmetric property says that I can just rewrite it with negative 3y on the left and negative 6 plus 5x on the right. The symmetric property says I can do that. Now the only thing to do to isolate the y is divide by negative 3 on everything. So those cancel out, leaving y by itself like I wanted. The negative 6 over negative 3 becomes a 2, and 5 over negative 3 is just negative 5/3 x, but then don't I need to reverse those so that the mx is first and the b second? Any questions about how I rearranged that one? Okay, so now that we've rewritten this one in slope-intercept form, what is the slope? Alright, so now what's the slope of this line? And what's the y-intercept?
2.
Okay, so to graph this, what do I do first? Right, and then from there? Correct. Okay, and then I can't do that again either way, so I'm ready to draw that line. Okay, the reason it's going down is because our slope was a negative 5/3, and then it crosses the y-axis at 2 because that was your y-intercept. Okay, now, let's look at the second one. We have 0 equals 6 minus 2x. What is missing here?
Y.
Correct. So that means we need to solve for x. Anytime the y is missing, you want to get x by itself. Only when y is missing though. Okay? So to get x by itself, what should I do first? Subtract the 6 to the other side because it was a positive. So to move it, we subtract it. Now we have negative 6 equals negative 2x. Now to isolate the x, what do I do? Right? So don't we end up with a 3 equals x? What kind of graph is it when you just have x and a number? Vertical. Okay? So if it's just x and a number, doesn't it mean that you go to that number and draw a vertical line through it? Okay, so correct. Anytime y is not there, it's automatically a vertical line. Now, do we see an intersection?
Yes.
Where is it located? 3, negative 3. Okay, so now just like always, let's check it. We can use our new stuff. Y equals negative 5/3 x plus 2. And then down here, it was just x equals 3, right? So x equals 3. So in the y place, what do we put? Negative 3. And then in the 2x places, what do we put? Positive 3's. Well, obviously this one's true. 3 equals 3. Type in that and see if it equals negative 3. Okay, listen. To receive a stamp for this homework tomorrow, pages 2 and 3, you have to show me where you checked it. And if the equation had to be rewritten, I better see that work where it had to be rewritten. If you just have a bunch of lines drawn and no algebra done, you're not getting credit. Does everybody understand? You may switch out.